Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Jackson, and welcome to another Tales from the Backlog Deep Dive, where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. Today's game on the show is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is a first-person action-adventure game developed by MachineGames and published by Bethesda Softworks for contemporary consoles and PC in 2024. And real quick, if this is your first time here, first of all, thank you for stopping by. Here's how spoilers work on the show. We're not going to spoil the story of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle for a while. There will be a timestamp down in the show notes for when spoilers begin. Until that point, you are perfectly safe to stick around and enjoy the discussion. And I say it is a discussion. I'm not here by myself. I am here with a great guest, a first-time guest on the show. My guest today is the host of the Greatest Story Ever Played podcast and distinguished treasure hunter, Dan. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to get to do this Columbus, Ohio podcast with you.
That's right. Yeah. Local. I was going to say one of the very few people I've had on the show that I've hung out with in real life before we do the show together. So very, very cool. Great to have you here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
And like I said, we're doing the new Indiana Jones game today. We have a really interesting one on the show. In case people are here and they don't know what Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is, we have some quick pitches for the top. So I say Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is Indiana Jones, if you can believe it, by way of Hitman and Dishonored. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I think that this really captures the essence of a classic Indiana Jones story, but you get to play it. So I think this is exactly what it's shot for.
Exactly. Yeah. You always hope that they're going to capture the vibe and, the dreaded descriptor. It makes you feel like you're Indiana Jones or something like that. I played this on PC Game Pass. It took me 25 hours to beat. 25 hours with a good amount of side content. Definitely not all of it. How about you?
I think mine was about 20 hours. I did a little bit less of the side content. I did more of it in the beginning, and as the game went on, I did a little bit less of it.
Yeah, that's smart. Definitely one you can burn out on if you try to do too much. But it can be a very long game. I've seen playtimes in the 30, 40-hour range for people who are doing a lot more of the side stuff. So there we go. Before we dive in real quick, the two directors on the game, Jerk Gustafsson and Axel Torvenius, two main credits for directing the game. And, spoiler, a game well done, in our opinion. But first, let's talk about our histories with why we wanted to play this game. And I don't think we can do this without talking about our histories with Indiana Jones in general. So Dan, you an Indiana Jones fan, what drew you to this game?
Yeah, I do like Indiana Jones. I have seen the first three movies, so Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade. But I have not seen the two more recent-ish ones. But I really like the original three, thought it was fun. Also, this game caught a lot of buzz, and that really drew me in. This was a game in Fantasy Critic I actually counterpicked because I was convinced it would be bad.
Yeah.
And so I got wrecked because of that. But because it scored really highly, which was good, but that really caught my attention because I was like, I don't see how this is going to work. But instead, they, It got all these good scores. I saw a bunch of people in the podcast scene who were enjoying it. And so I was like, I think I need to check this out.
Yeah, it's basically the same with me, except I am not really a fan of Indiana Jones. That's not to say I don't like the movies. I just didn't watch them when I was a kid, and I grew up not watching them and thus not really caring about Indiana Jones. So I often people get upset with me when they try and talk movies because I haven't seen a lot of movies. It's not that I grew up not watching movies. I just when I was a kid, I watched Star Wars 600 times instead of watching other movies. So I'm not an Indiana Jones nostalgia guy. I am a Harrison Ford nostalgia guy though. So Indiana Jones is pretty easy to jump into. I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark over Christmas vacation for the first time last year. I did see the Crystal Skull. That was the first movie in the series that I watched.
Okay.
A fact that really upsets the Indiana Jones fans out there. So yeah, not a huge nostalgia thing. And like you, I saw the trailer for this, like the first big trailer when they did a showcase and all that. And I thought that trailer looked bad. Like, looking back on it, I don't think that the trailer really emphasized like what the secret sauce in this game is. I think they're just kind of showing off like what the game looks like when you're fist fighting guys. And it's like, you play the game and the point's not fist fighting. It's just like, they can't show you wandering around looking at your map in a trailer because nobody's going to get excited about that. But I saw that trailer too, and I was like, that game's going to suck. And I think part of the reason why I thought it would suck too is I did not play any MachineGames games before this. So I know that they're like a very respected developer, but I never played any of their games, so I don't have personal experience. So I thought, I was like, okay, cool. You know, you do a show talking about games, you play a lot of games. You ever get this feeling like a new big release comes out and you're like, I can just ignore that shit. I don't have to care about that. It feels good. It's none of my business. I'm going to play these other games and never think about that. I thought I could do that with this. And then all the praise out there and people started name dropping like Dishonored and Hitman. And I was like, ooh, that's not what I expected. And those are some of my favorite games ever. So I felt like I had to check it out after hearing those comparisons.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I just was like, this isn't. It didn't grab me initially at launch, or the that it was coming. I hadn't, when I'd counterpicked this at the beginning of last year. I hadn't played any machine games yet, but I did play the first Wolfenstein, the reboot one, New Order, a couple months ago. And after playing that, I would have chose differently because I felt like I learned firsthand that like MachineGames is good. And then playing this, I'm like, yeah, they're good. Like, I feel like MachineGames now is a like, I should play their games, like the ones I haven't played or new ones that come, because between Wolfenstein New Order and this, they're a good developer.
Yeah, this was another one in the long line of times when, like, I think just because I play a lot of video games, sometimes I'll start to be like, yeah, I know everything about what's out there. I'm an expert, no big deal, but I know stuff. And then I play a game that I had initially written off because I thought I knew shit. And turns out I don't know shit, because this game, Indiana Jones: The Great Circle, is a really fucking good game. I think that like at its baseline level, when it's not like hitting on all cylinders, it's still really good. Very solid experience, captures the Indiana Jones vibe, recreates the character really well, the music, the set pieces, the adventuring, all of that stuff. And then like this is not a consistent thing throughout the game, but there are these peaks of the game where it's like incredible level design, incredible exploration, some of the most satisfying game that I've played in a long time. So I came out of this just being like, number one, MachineGames, my apologies. I will never write you off again. I thought I knew shit and I don't. And number two, it's really heartening to see like a licensed product turned into a game it's like, obviously they want people to buy this and play it, but like they didn't throw in a bunch of shit that like would tank other licensed stuff like Suicide Squad and that Avengers game and stuff like that. There's like, no, we're going to make a really, really good game and we're just going to mold it into an Indiana Jones experience. But remove Indiana Jones, the character, from this, it would still be one of my favorite games I've played in a while.
Yeah, I think that's good. I like your comparison to some of the other licensed properties, because I think that's where my maybe initial negativity was coming, is I thought it would be like the reverse of a video game movie, right? Where you just slap a name on it and they're like, cool, we'll push this out and it'll make money and it won't be good, but who cares? I thought that this would be that, and instead it wasn't. Instead, it's both a complete game on its own that's enjoyable. Like you said, if Indiana Jones wasn't in this, it would still be an enjoyable game, whoever your main character is. But because they really capture Indiana Jones, I think it elevates it, because it's like, I feel like if you were like a hyper Indiana Jones fan, like this is canon. Like you couldn't like I feel like when, like Star Wars, right? You could argue about what's really canon or not all the time, but and maybe for good reasons. But like this would be like, I think if you're an Indiana Jones fan, you would have to love and accept this alongside the movies. Like
Yeah.
it's that good.
Agreed. Yeah. With my limited experience with Indiana Jones, this fits right in with, everything that you would go to that kind of thing for. It's just, when you're not doing the set piece stuff or, fighting or stuff like that, you're playing a very, very well designed video game. So a lot to like here and a lot to dig into. So we are going to take a music break. We're gonna get in the vibe again of Indiana Jones. We'll come back. We'll set up what this story is all about. The story in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was actually conceived by Todd Howard, who apparently was trying to get this game made for quite a long time. And then the ball got rolling. The script actually was written by Tommy Tordson Bjork. Hopefully I'm saying names correctly as always. The game is set in 1937, which canonically is between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. And in the game, shocker, I know, but you play as Indiana Jones, who is mocapped and voiced by Troy Baker. Indiana Jones travels to the Vatican in pursuit of a giant man who broke into his university museum and stole a cat mummy. That is the inciting event. Now, before we get too far into the story here, taking on the role of Indiana Jones, taking on the character as portrayed in the past by Harrison Ford, huge ask of Troy Baker. Dan, how do you think Troy Baker did here?
I think he did great. I really like Troy Baker as Indiana Jones. Like, I knew it wasn't Harrison Ford, but if no one told me and I just like walked in hearing dialogue, I probably would have thought it was him. I thought he really nailed it.
Yeah, totally agree. It's another one. I think we talked about this in the Batman Arkham Origins episode when Troy Baker played the Joker, who was previously voiced by Mark Hamill. It's another like big actor that he's replacing. And the takeaway in that episode was, hey, Troy Baker's a really fucking good actor. Like he knows what he's doing. And same here in this game. The only thing is like there's some uncanny valley with the rendering of his face, of the Harrison Ford recreation in the CG and stuff like that. But enough of the facial mannerisms and especially the voice mannerisms and all of that. It's like you said, like if I just walked through a room and someone was playing this game and I heard the voice, to be like, oh, they got young Harrison Ford to do the voice. Very cool. So it's really good how, the acting captures that era of Harrison Ford and the character of Indiana Jones as I know him. It's cool how, yes, Indiana Jones is this action hero, this very capable, suave, confident character. But he's an archaeology professor. He's a fucking nerd. And this game captures that too. And I say that complimentary, like, very cool how much they're like, in any situation where he would want to pull out a camera and a notebook and start like writing down the stuff he's seeing, he does. And they didn't forget about that. And it's great.
Yeah, it's great. I love that Indiana Jones, like, you could summarize him as this belongs in a museum and then punching someone. Like, it's so great. He's both. It's so funny. I think also with Troy Baker being Indiana Jones so well, I would be all about a Han Solo game now with Troy Baker as... Ooh. Because like, fucking give it to me. Like, I'm all about it. Troy Baker being Harrison Ford, shoot. Make all of his movies as video games. I'm in.
Oh yeah, give me the Fugitive movie. Give me all of it.
Yeah, Air Force One. I'm in. Like,
yeah. The games. Yeah,
yeah. Like it would be so great. I read something about this where I guess when they were doing like voice act, like trying to figure out who would play Indiana Jones, the I don't know, director, whoever was in charge of that, said, "Give me anyone but Troy Baker." Like they didn't want Troy Baker, and so they had all these people audition, and then they were playing clips of Troy Baker, but not telling him it was Troy Baker, and
Mm.
sort of blind tested him, and it was, no, this guy's the best, and it was like, oh shit, it's Troy Baker. All right, we got to do it, which I thought was awesome. You're like, Troy Baker's like such a premier VA, but like he is because he's really good. It's like,
Yeah.
he deserves the praise he gets, and he did an awesome job here. What a hard thing to step into an iconic character like this, and he did it.
Yeah.
Really
Exactly.
well.
Yeah, there's pushback out there. There's the people say they're sick of Troy Baker in games because he's in so many and in so many prominent roles, and I do not understand. It's like, do you want worse actors? Like, I mean, I'm not going to begrudge any other actor who gets roles, but still, like, if you want the best of the best, Troy Baker's the best of the best, and how many more examples do you need? So this is definitely like, it must have been terrifying for even just a split second to be like, I'm going to have to recapture Harrison Ford's magic in this game. And he did. It's very good throughout the game. So back to the story and kind of like the setup for what this story is. So Indy goes to Vatican City, starts to follow these clues. They find this ancient priest who is talking about this great circle, they call it. It's in the title of the game, the Great Circle. It refers to ancient sites around the globe that, if you look at a globe, form a perfect circle around the earth. And so that should give you an idea of like the amount of globe hopping we're going to do in the game, location to location, country to country in 1937. In 1937, the rise of the fascists and the Nazis is happening, as per the normal Indiana Jones stories. And the main antagonist in this game is a Nazi archaeologist, not a war general or something like that, an archaeologist. So we have an archaeologist rivalry here. His name is Emmerich Voss. He's voiced by Marios Gavrilis. And he's also hunting the secrets of the Great Circle because he wants to use the power that can be harnessed for war stuff. And I'm shouting this out in particular because Voss is a captivating antagonist. He's really, really good. Like, rivals, Troy Baker's Indiana Jones on screen when they go head to head, when they have their verbal sparring. It's really good. And then basically any scene that Voss is in that doesn't involve Indiana Jones, he just dominates those scenes. The acting, the writing, everything like that is so, so, so good.
Yeah, he is a really great nemesis for Indiana Jones. I think too, early on, you find out they know each other from before this, right? Because of the like archaeology circles they hang out in. And so it's cool that there's sort of this like maybe rivalry they have as men before this happens, and then you have this rivalry because he's a Nazi and wants to use magic to destroy the world. So it's like it's cool. It's a good because I think Indiana Jones starts his journey off right just caring about history basically, and then gets pulled into like a World War II story.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so you kind of go from place to place, a lot of times on Voss's trail. It's the other thing that I think makes Voss a really good antagonist is that he's not like some, bumbling idiot that you have to defeat, 8 times throughout the course of the story or something like that. He's very capable as well. He gets the better of Indiana Jones often enough that it's, anytime there's a confrontation or a battle of wits or something like that, it's very possible that Voss is going to win this time. And so it makes this kind of like globe-trotting rivalry really, really good. It's just like anytime he was on screen, I'm smiling because I just love the charisma that Marios Gavrilis puts into the role. It's excellent. It's really good.
Yeah, I agree. I like too that, like you brought up, that he's capable on both sides, like Indiana Jones. It's not like he's just a nerdy archaeologist or just like a warlord, kind of guy. He's an equal match. I think that's great. Also, I guess just for its sake, fighting fascists in this game was really enjoyable for the
Yeah.
times that we're in. I thought that was nice to get to stick it to them.
Yeah. MachineGames have hit on something that I think a lot of people can agree with. I see a lot of people playing Wolfenstein these days and enjoying in Indiana Jones a little bit of gameplay stuff, but like, picking up a sledgehammer, bashing a fascist, all that stuff. There's a little bit of extra glee in that these days, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
Other characters are also pretty good. I'll just name a couple of the other main characters. There's a journalist who travels with Indy throughout the story. Her name is Gina, voiced by Alessandra Mastronardi, and she's really good. She's a great, again, like witty match for Indiana Jones and his sarcastic sense of humor. She can see through all that shit and can hold her own as well. And then there is a storyline with the Nephilim, the biblical Nephilim, who in this game, they're giants. And there's one particular giant character named Locus, who's voiced by Tony Todd before he passed. So Tony Todd's really great. There is a mini documentary on I think it's the BAFTA YouTube channel that is all about like the casting and motion capture and voice acting for this game. A lot of it's focused on Troy Baker, but they did have an anecdote in there where they were like, we can't get this Locust character to pop the way we want. And you know who'd be great? Tony Todd would be great. And someone in the casting department was just like, yeah, hold my beer. And they got Tony Todd, and the Locust came together, ends up being a fun character. So, there's a core group of like 5 or 6 main characters throughout the story. They're all excellent. Acting, writing, characterization. They're very fun as we go on in Indiana Jones adventure.
Yeah, they were both. I agree. They were both great. I didn't realize Tony Todd was in this, and maybe the second time you're with Locus, I was like, "Is this Tony Todd?" And I looked it up, and I was like, "Yes," because he's great. Everything Tony Todd's in is awesome. I'd never. I don't know for the Alessandra who voiced Gina. I don't think I'd seen her in anything, but I thought she was really great. I liked her as Indiana Jones' sidekick. I also liked that, like, I feel like the kind of character she is pretty interesting for like a 1937 woman who's like, a journalist. She's sneaking into things. She's willing to, I don't know, like fight people and like all of that stuff. It's cool. She's awesome. I thought she was a really cool character.
Yeah. Yeah. Without falling into stereotypes of action movies too often, she gets damseled a couple times, but not for very long. And it's not like she's completely helpless all the time. She's very capable for most of the story too. So she's fun to go along with. And again, Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford just has like a type of character that he played for a long time where he's very confident, very cocky, sarcastic, and all of that. And Gina is a character that can hang for sure. So real fun. So like the big takeaway, because the story is not like, it's not like the deepest story ever. It's an Indiana Jones story. And that's a win. I think they would be doing something weird if they tried to get away from what makes Indiana Jones beloved among its fans. And this story is just a fun ride around the globe. You have I won't spoil it, but I think the MacGuffin that you're chasing in this game, there's always an artifact or something like that in these movies and these stories. It's a fun one. Like, I think this one is actually like more interesting than the other ones in the Indiana Jones movies I've watched. I'm not going to say what it is exactly, but it's not like a made up thing that no one's ever heard of, where it's like, oh, we invented a magical artifact that from this civilization that, like, just suspend your disbelief and just pretend that this thing exists. The one in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the big one, is something we all know. And the way that they play with that for the sake of a fun, fantastical Indiana Jones story, I thought was really fun. So just going through the story, capture the vibe of the movies, the action set pieces, all of that. Fantastic.
Yep. Totally agree.
The other part of that, I think, is the presentation of this. So we talked about the story and the characters of Indiana Jones, but you would not capture that vibe, I think, without the soundtrack as well, without the music. Not John Williams doing the score, it's Gordy Habb who does the score. And I didn't know anything about this composer before, but apparently Gordy Habb has been like reinterpreting, rearranging, and I don't want to say mimicking, but like capturing the essence of John Williams properties for a long time. Has done almost every Star Wars video game. When I was like looking at the credits, it's like Star Wars Battlefront, all this other stuff where it's like, so if you need someone who has the chops to reimagine and then write an original score that captures the essence of John Williams, you know, and they have like the theme song for Indiana Jones, of course, in the game, but like there's a bunch of original music, but it sounds John Williams-y, so it sounds Indiana Jones-ish, and that captures that feeling really, really well without just like using songs from the movies.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like I didn't notice the music all the time, but I think in the right way, just like you would in the films. And when you'd hear it at the right times, it also felt nice when like the Indiana Jones theme would come and you're like, yeah. So I think they did super well here.
Yeah. Like I'm not a monster. Like, even though I don't have huge nostalgia for Indiana Jones, when that theme kicks in, I know that theme. Everyone knows that theme. It's a great theme song, and it sells the sense of adventure really, really well. And then the rest of it, you know, there's, you know, parts where it picks up, and I really like, I like, maybe it's my history with Star Wars because I've watched those movies so many times. And then other John Williams work, of course, where you just kind of like, there's some things that I attribute to John Williams, which may or may not be like specializations of like, you know, these really like high strings. And when a song fades out and the next scene begins, the music will kind of like trail off. You know, think of the beginning of when the opening crawl in a Star Wars movie fades away and the scene kind of goes in and the music kind of trails off. And this game does that too. Again, I don't have all the musical vocabulary to talk about it, but it did really remind me, and that's the job. The job here is not to write the most memorable soundtrack of all time. The job is to write an Indiana Jones soundtrack by someone who's not John Williams, and it's very good.
Oh yeah.
Actually, last part, I guess, about presentation is visually, I think this game looks great too. And they're going for a photorealistic thing. Characters are pretty stylized, I think, but within, you know, games that are going for a photorealistic thing. We already talked about Indiana Jones. They recreated young Harrison Ford's face for the character. Nobody else that I noticed from previous movies. It's just Harrison Ford. The character Marion, I think her name is, from the movies, she's not in the game. So it's just Harrison Ford. Everyone else, very, you know, good looking characters, recognizable, memorable faces. And I thought that like, this is one of those games where you pay attention, you're like, oh, the lip syncing is really good. The facial animations are great. Harrison Ford has a very distinctive face, very distinctive mannerisms, facial mannerisms, we'll say. They got all that stuff down really good. Environments look great. Good looking game, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this game looked good, and I feel like is on par with like my experience with the first Wolfenstein game or what I would really want here. I think it's all good. I was curious for you.
Yeah.
How did you feel playing in first person rather than like being a third person Indiana Jones game?
You know, I heard people talk about that when that first trailer came out and they saw that it was a first person game, and they were like, well, what's the point of Indiana Jones if you can't see Indiana Jones? And that's not really a concern because there's a bunch of cutscenes. You see his face all the time. It also switches to third person when you're climbing, which is odd, but, you know, doesn't really bother me, I guess. I guess they want you to see more of the surroundings when you're climbing and stuff like that. I don't know. I didn't really think twice about the perspective after the initial, like, the reaction to that trailer, you know? Okay. What did you think?
I'm not sure. I think it worked, I guess is what I'll say is I think it worked. For me, part of me wonders if it would have made sense to do a third person where it's like a Uncharted or a Tomb Raider kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's why they didn't want to. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure where I quite fall on either end of it. Also, MachineGames like Wolfenstein's first person also, so it's
Yeah.
like this. So maybe it's this is what we do, and so we're sticking with that and not trying to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think is wrong. You should, I would focus on things I'm good at too if I was a game studio,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I just thought it was kind of interesting
Yeah.
as a thing.
I think what the first person perspective does is it like obviously I think the goal of it is to put you in the shoes of the character and have you kind of experience things as they do.
Mhm.
And so I think that this game is so exploration and like I don't want to say like environmental detail focused because like this isn't The Witness or something like that, but like
Mhm.
you are doing a lot of exploring and you're doing a lot of like looking around environments for clues. Maybe there's stuff on the walls, like murals or something like that. And I think that that's easier in first person to like have you
Mhm.
look all around the environment in every direction. Not that it can't be done with third person games, but just putting you there and having it in that first person maybe makes that easier. And it's probably a combination of, like you said, why reinvent the wheel for this studio? They've been making first person games forever. I'm sure they have an engine that they're comfortable working in. So, why fix what's not broken?
That's a good point about the clues. I do wonder if, because this game is really like clue focused, where you're like digging into your environment to, I don't know, figure out your next step kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that wouldn't feel that way in third person. Like, because I guess when thinking about like Tomb Raider or Uncharted, you do clue stuff, but like you do just kill a lot of people. And this game and this game is a bit different than that.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. I think that's a good reason too among those.
Yeah. I think if I remember right, maybe you can remind me, is there a like detective vision mode in here? There is something like that, right?
I think you're right.
I think so, but it's not as there is because I remember using it to know like where enemies are and stuff like that.
That's right.
But it's not as powerful, I don't think, as like I'm trying to think of like other games where you're solving puzzles and using environmental stuff, like The Witcher 3 and the Batman Arkham games and stuff like that. Those have detective vision modes that are like really, really powerful, and it might be because in third person you're not as close to what you're looking at or what the character's looking at. And in first person, they can reasonably expect you to like just look at the walls and see what you find. There might be something interesting there. And that might play into it. I would guess that they were just like, no, we make first person games. We're very comfortable making first person games. It's going to be fine. Trust us. And it ended up being fine.
No, yeah, they were right. And clearly the decision they made worked, like with how much people like this game at large and that we both enjoyed it. Like that's they made the right call, but I don't know. It was something I was thinking about a little bit after the fact.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder why.
Mm-hmm. It is an interesting choice to have a very recognizable character and then have you be in first person and not look at them. But like, I don't know. I wouldn't be mad that I didn't get to look at the back of Harrison Ford's hat, if it was a third person perspective or something. So it was a good call. And speaking of good calls, we have to talk about what it's like to play this game. So let's listen to a bit more music. When we come back, we will talk about what it's like to play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So this is, as we said, a first-person game. It is technically a first-person shooter, although while you have a gun, this is not a shooting-focused game. This is a melee-focused game. Similar to, Indiana Jones shoots guns, he shoots people in the movies, but it's more often Like there's a slapstick, like quick reaction, improvisational type of vibe to the way they fight in those movies. Thinking about, in the first movie, just trying to fight somebody on like an airplane wing or something like that. So I think they captured that really well in here with the way that they handle weapons and the way they handle combat. So your default like kits will always have one weapon, like either a pistol or a baton or something like that. We'll talk about the costumes in a second. But the bread and butter of fighting in this game is picking up random objects from the environment and turning those into weapons. They all are very limited use. They'll break after you hit like 3 or 4 times, and then you have to throw them away, pick something else up, and keep this kind of improvisational melee combat going. And there's a lot of fighting in the game. There's a lot of stealth, but it generally devolves into combat at some point. Or you're using those improvised weapons that you picked up. Maybe you picked up a hammer. Maybe you picked up a guitar. Maybe you picked up, I don't know, not a toaster, but just random shit that you find, a pickaxe, a baseball bat, whatever you find, that becomes your weapon. And even if you're doing stealth takeouts, it's all focused on these things you pick up. So how did you feel about like this rhythm, which is basically like pick up a weapon, get in a fight, that weapon breaks, you toss it away, you scramble, and then you're like, oh shit, what's around me? All right, there's a dustpan. The dustpan's my weapon now. And then you hit the guy in the face with a dustpan.
Yeah, I felt like it made me really calculated because of like, you might walk into a room and there's 2 things that are there and you're like, okay, which one can I get more hits in with?
Yeah.
Because, it would say like, all right, this is a 2-hit item and then it will break, or this one's a 5-hit or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it also made me like aware of my surroundings, because this game, like for you, the player, goes to shit if like 3 guys shows up, because once people start shooting, you're dead. Like you're not really forgiven. So you need to like kind of catch a guy by himself who's maybe not paying attention. And if you can knock him out before anything goes on, like it really encourages you to be stealthy. You can fight, but not that much.
Yeah. One of the cool parts too about using those improvised weapons is the sound design on them is really lovingly made. Every weapon that you pick up feels like it has its own sound effect for when you bash somebody with it, including like, you pick up a guitar and you smash a guy over the head with it. Somebody did, sound capture of a smashing guitar on something. And like I said, there's like a bit of slapstick to Indiana Jones in the movies, and they capture that really well with the way you fight in this. So if your weapon breaks, you go to hand-to-hand combat, or if you don't have a weapon, you go to hand-to-hand combat. And you like you said, like you generally don't want to be in hand-to-hand combat. You definitely don't want to be fighting 2 or 3 people at the same time. That's bad news. Like Indiana Jones is a capable fighter. We know this from all the media before. He can fight, but he's not, he's not Bruce Lee or something like that. So if there's a bunch of guys, he'll lose a fight and you'll get your ass kicked in this game pretty often. So what did you think of this like hand-to-hand combat? Because it's different from the weapons.
Yeah, I thought this part was less fun. When I found myself in these spots, I was like, I'm probably just gonna die. Like I didn't do this the right way. I need to do this section again because I alerted too many people or whatever. So I thought it was okay, but like not great.
Yeah, I would agree. This hand-to-hand combat is fine if you're fighting one person, or if you are, like your weapon breaks halfway through fighting a guy and you're like, I got to just land a couple punches and he'll go down. It's okay for that. If you're doing a boss fight that's hand to hand, I thought those were pretty bad. Like I didn't like those at all. And then there are like boxing rings that are like hand to hand boss fights, and I hated those. I did a couple of them in the first area that you can do them because they're like a recurring side activity. And then I never did one ever again. I was like, oh, I'll be fine without these.
I didn't do any of those, so I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't like it on the required boss fights where you like had to do them, and it was just like For those on the required boss fights, like the couple times, I don't feel like this is a spoiler. When you first meet Locust, you fight him,
Right.
and on those, and it's like I know I just need to get through this. Like it didn't feel nice, of
Nope.
like this is enjoyable. Instead, it was like this is what I need to do to keep it going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do have a gun, so like that's helpful in those boss fights. You might
Mm.
have a gun depending on your costume. Enemies will like drop guns too. Like if you knock out an enemy that has a gun, you can pick their gun up. But it never turns into like a full-on shooter because there is that stealth element. And even if you have a gun, if you're going up against four Nazis that have guns, you're gonna die. Like it's
Hmm.
that kind of game. So guns were best used very sparingly if I was sure that I wasn't going to alert the entire camp. Or the cool part about the guns is you can just turn the guns around and bash people with like the handles, the butts.
Hmm.
And that's the way to use guns in this game is as melee weapons, not as firearms.
I was curious, how did you feel about not being able to shoot really in this?
You know, I didn't mind it. Like I didn't go into this with the expectation. Like they give you a gun pretty early on and they teach you how to shoot it. And after shooting it a couple times, I was like, oh, it's cumbersome to use this gun. Like reloading takes forever in this game. It reminded me of Pathologic 2, where you can get a gun, which is super helpful because it's a dangerous place that you're in, but you're not a soldier. Like you barely know how to use it. So
Hmm.
it's not, it is a quote a first person shooter, but it's really not. It's a first person game where you can shoot a gun in an emergency, which is basically how I use them.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know. Maybe this is tainted by playing Wolfenstein, but
Mm-hmm.
I machine games I think are really good at guns. Like
Mm-hmm.
Wolfenstein, like is very. I don't play a lot of first person shooters, but that one I thought like the gun mechanics were like really, really, really good. And
Mm-hmm.
so playing here, I felt like it was almost playing like you threw out one of your best features.
Mm.
Um, and instead said, no, you can't do that. And because even when you did shoot, like, shoot, if you had a, I don't know, a machine gun and three guys were coming at you, you still might die. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, come on, I have 20 bullets. It's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No,
You
there's
shouldn't
three of
shoot.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't shoot. Don't find yourself in a spot where you're shooting.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I think from a gameplay point, I didn't like not being able to shoot. On the other side, like Indiana Jones kills people, but it's not like that many. Like I
Yeah,
assume,
he's not John Wick.
right? Yeah, I imagine in each movie he probably kills only a couple people. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think for the spirit of that, that makes a lot of sense. And like, if you play Tomb Raider or Uncharted, like, they each kill probably hundreds of people in a
Yeah.
game.
Yep.
And like maybe Indiana Jones isn't or shouldn't be that person. And maybe they shouldn't be either. I don't know if you would think on, either of them
Right.
actually kill all those people. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I get it from like a big concept part, but then there's part of me that's like, I don't know. I wish I could have just shot through the camp though.
Yeah. I think like if you pick your spots, you can do that from time to time, but it's like if you just walk into a restricted camp and just, start blasting, it's going to end poorly very quickly. So,
Hmm.
you're right. Like machine gun or machine games, they very obviously they know how to make first person shooters. So this was a deliberate design decision by them to make the guns harder to use, slower to reload, make Indiana Jones a lot more fragile than, a shooter character generally is. So it's them kind of telling you like, yeah, we know that you've played our Wolfensteins maybe, but this is not that kind of game. Go grab
Hmm.
yourself a sledgehammer and start sneaking
Hmm.
because this is more of a stealth game than a first person shooter. Or like, you grab a sledgehammer, you're not just going to run into a camp and start bashing everybody because you'll get overwhelmed and you'll die pretty quickly. So the stealth comes into this. And this is where they like picked a couple of good mechanics from other stuff, namely the costume system from Hitman, where if anyone has not played the Hitman games, the way those games work is you change costumes So you don't have to slink around in the shadows. You hide in plain sight because you're dressed as someone who's supposed to be there. And that's what you do in this game too. You can find, for example, in most zones, you can find a Nazi or a fascist uniform, and then you can go in their camps and just walk around. And they took another thing from Hitman, which is most of those zones will have one kind of like captain character that will see through your disguise. So you can't just like forget that you're in a restricted area, but you can walk around unencumbered. As long as you don't steal when people are watching, you're fine, as long as those captain characters don't see you. And I love this system in the Hitman games because it just totally changes how stealth works in your mind when you're not hiding behind boxes and hiding in the corner and stuff. And you're just like, I have this costume. As long as that guy doesn't see me, I can just walk into this place where I'm trying to get to. And you always have to do a little bit of work to get those costumes too. So it feels good when you find them. It feels good when you get them as a reward for something. And you're like, yeah, there was that camp. There's a side quest that made me want to go in that camp. Now I can just walk in the front door. And most of these zones, I think you can do them without the costumes. If you're really committed to the stealth, you probably can. But, just like I said, walking in through the front door feels great. I belong here.
Yeah, I like that too. I think that was a cool addition or a cool system in here that I think made not using guns very often work out well. Because in Hitman, I haven't played them, but my understanding is in Hitman, right, you basically have an objective and then however you accomplish it is fine. So if you wanted to go guns blazing, you could, or if you wanted to be really stealthy and make it work that way, you could do that. So I appreciated how they leaned in this way.
In Hitman 2, it's very similar where like Agent 47 is a very capable shooter, but he's not a tank. You die really quickly if you have 4 guards shooting at you in Hitman. So people who are really good at Hitman can go guns blazing, but someone like me, you can't, because you'll get overwhelmed and you'll get shot up, and it's just not going to work. Same thing in this game. So sneaking around, which feels, again, my limited experience with Indiana Jones, he doesn't go guns blazing into a camp of Nazis. He sneaks around and finds a path to where he's trying to go. They nailed that in this game. By the way, the sneak attack animations are great. Especially when you have a two-handed weapon, you'll like stick it between the Nazis' legs and like sack tap them. And then when they turn around because their balls hurt, you smash them over the head. And there's, I want to say like, I don't know, at least 5 of these animations. They're all really good. Never got tired of doing like the sneak attacks or anything like that. Special shout out to whoever had the idea for that one in particular. Like, what'd be funny is if I hit this fascist in the balls with a sledgehammer. And then when he turns around to be like, hey man, then you smack him in the head and you go on your way.
Yeah, that's super good. Really like that.
So we've kind of said we kind of got the combat stuff out of the way, the stealth out of the way, but this is an exploration and a puzzle focused game. And basically you're doing sneaking around, you're doing stealth attacks on people to just like get them out of the way so you can continue to explore. And this game is really fun to explore in the levels. I will say the best level design is front loaded, I think, in the first zone in the Vatican. After that, the levels get a little less interesting, especially, so it's broken up into 2 kinds. There are open zones, of which there's maybe 5 or 6, and then there are some very linear levels that are more like set pieces that you go through. I love the linear levels. I think that some of the open zones are great. Some of them are, the other ones are fine. There was never one where I was like, this sucks. But I think that one of the key things here that will keep you from feeling like some of those later open zones suck is this game has a ton of collectibles, and you need to police yourself, grab a hold of your gamer tendencies, and do not try to 100% this game unless you are very confident in that decision.
Yeah, I agree with that. In the beginning, I did more, and it kind of gradually went down as the game went on.
Me too.
And what I found myself focusing on especially was like any side quests that had to do with Gina. I was like, these are definitely worth doing. Like, because anything you could learn about her like character or her story, or even other characters you meet along the way, was worthwhile. But I don't know. By the end, like I think on the one of the last levels, I was like, I'm not doing any of this. Like I'm just doing stuff that has to do with story because I felt like I was like, I've done this. I'm satisfied.
Yeah, that was my arc too, where the Vatican is such a well-designed level. It's like super dense. It's super interconnected. It's a city. So like you're going in buildings and the buildings connect with each other and with other outdoor spaces. There's like catacombs beneath the city. There's a whole bunch of really fun places to explore. Like I love exploring well-designed video game levels. This is what gave me the Dishonored comparison, is that Vatican City level felt like a Dishonored level. And that's like the highest compliment for level design, is to feel like a Dishonored level, in my opinion. And so like that was really great. Then some of the later zones are just less interesting spaces. Like the one after that, you go to the pyramids, and it's not to say that like they didn't design interesting places to go, but it's not in a city. It's a flat area, and it's just less interesting as a space. So I found myself doing the same thing you did, where I would they kind of do you a favor too, because they group the side content by like, here are the major side quests that have like their own levels to go in and stuff like that. And you definitely want to do those. They're great. And then there's like, here's these like side stories where you'll go to old locations and you'll get like new story stuff, and they might give you some collectibles as a reward or some money and stuff like that. And those were typically okay. They didn't take a super long time. And then below those, they're like, here's the collectible sicko shit. Like, do not do this unless you want to 100% it. You don't need to. And I was like, by the last half of the game, I was like, I'm not doing those. I don't need to. I get it. I get what that is. And I don't feel like I missed anything of like substantial value. I did all the good shit, the good side quests.
Yeah, I appreciated that. Because they keep all of that in Indiana Jones notebook, so it felt pretty natural as a thing. And then I really appreciated that like they tiered it for you, so you kind of knew what was worthwhile. Because sometimes games will just have everything listed together, and you're like, but what do I actually want to do? Like, and you're not sure. I felt like this, showed you the hand right away and was like, if this is what you want, you should do this. And so I felt like I could choose what I felt rewarded by, and kudos to them on that.
Yeah, dude, how cool is the notebook and the maps and stuff like that in the game? I love that.
Yeah, I thought that was great, and gave you that insight as Indiana Jones with a nerd, like you talked about. Like it was good. It felt really right. It like I feel like it would be a thing I would want to flip through. Like I'm sure there's someone who's like 100% of this and would just go through their notebook, and you could watch it on YouTube of like, this is what I've done and blah, blah, blah. And I bet that would be really enjoyable.
Yeah. It's a diegetic like notebook. He opens his journal. You have all these like scraps of clues, maybe a newspaper clipping, maybe a picture, maybe a letter that you take from a Nazi camp. That's another thing about the exploring. There's like treasure to find everywhere, and it's really fun, really rewarding. Like, you need the money that you find to buy upgrades and stuff like that. So like it's good to find 100 coins. It's not meaningless in this game. It all goes into something you want. And so then you open up the journal, it's full of all this stuff that he's collected. And the map is an actual in-world map that you open. And it reminded me of like The Last of Us Part 2's map, if anyone's played that. Very similar type of thing. And I love that. Like, I don't mind a video gamey, map in a menu, but I love, the dedication to being like, well, no, this is Indiana Jones. He would have a physical map and a notebook full of notes. And they did that. They made it.
Yeah. That was really good. Also, we were rewarded with, when you find money, Indiana Jones would say something like, it's always good to take money from a fascist.
Yes.
You're like, yeah, my guy.
Yep. It's
always
great.
fun.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else about like the process of playing Indiana Jones? I guess like one thing for me, I mentioned how I think the Vatican is the best open zone in the game, and then the later ones get a little less interesting. They do mix up how you get around those open zones in a way that's like, we know, I don't know if they would say it like this, but it's like, we know that this isn't as interesting a space as Vatican City, but we're going to make it into, a different way to traverse this place. We're going to have special items that you need to fully explore these places. They all have the different costumes and stuff like that. So even if I wasn't like blown away by the level design in the later ones, I was still like, this is just really well made. Like it's really well thought out, even if it's not as interesting to explore.
Yeah, I think on the later levels they honed in on like the temples or the sacred grounds or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that was the part that was cool to explore, and then the surface was kind of whatever. But in
Yeah.
Vatican, it was all pretty interesting. Like
Hmm.
it was engaging. Also, I feel like it was pretty on point. Last year I went to the Vatican actually.
Mm.
Um I'm not Catholic, but it like when I was there, it was super hot, and so I just kept thinking about that while I was playing. It was just like, oh my god, it's just reminding me of being hot as hell.
Hmm.
Going to I don't know St. Peter's Basilica or whatever it was, but I felt like it felt like there of having been in some of that area. I was like, this is hitting, like it
Yeah.
feels right.
I haven't been to the Vatican. I have been to one of the places that this game takes place in.
Ooh,
Not
cool.
not the United States. I guess we'll talk about it in the spoilers section. I don't want to. Yeah, I haven't been to Indiana Jones's fake university where you spend some time at the beginning of the game, but another place we'll talk about it later. But like, I think the sense of place feels cool, and especially the sense of like an older version of these places, 1937. So,
Yeah.
um, less technology, less built up in some of these places for sure. Like the Vatican is like under construction, and there's like famous structures that are under construction while the game is there. And that stuff
Mhm.
is great. It's just fun to like walk around and look at what they did.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm excited to hear the place you've been later on.
Yeah. I do want to shout out once again the linear levels. They're kind of like maybe three of them, and they're kind of like spaced out. So you'll do like two open zones, then a quick linear thing, then two more opens or one more open zone, I forget, then like a couple linear things. And those are number one, those are like the Tomb Raider Uncharted type levels where you're like
Mhm.
doing a bunch of climbing, doing a bunch of, set piece fights, stuff like that. There's like the pacing of those is really, really good. I looked at like some lists of, ranking the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle levels, and I was shocked to see these down at the bottom of a lot of those lists. I was like, I thought these were awesome. Like
Mhm.
there's one in particular on a ship that was like really good. I love that so much. Reminded me a lot of like, I really like the Uncharted games, and it reminded me of what I like about Uncharted, which
Mhm.
is, not to say too much, but like climbing around in these precarious situations, the classic like Nathan Jake Drake going whoa 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 as like something he's hanging on swings over to the side and all that. Like you get some of that fun
Mhm.
stuff, and obviously like the Uncharted and Tomb Raider probably wouldn't exist without Indiana Jones. So like it's cool to go full circle in a way with some of those too. Did you like the linear stuff too?
I did. I liked the one you're talking about, and another one that I won't spoil, but there was another one that I thought was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Of again, I think this game does a really good job of setting its place in time, like you mentioned earlier, of 1930s world. It was cool. I felt really a part of this time, and like I think as a like kudos to this game is like its environment and all of that felt like if you were watching a TV show of this or something like that. Like you could see
Hmm.
this being episode by episode of like, okay, this episode we're here and this episode we're there and blah blah blah. Like I think they did a really good job here.
Yeah. I would say, as far as criticisms of the act of playing the game, number one, I don't think the hand-to-hand combat is great, but it just incentivizes you to not lean on that, I guess. I think they really, really want you to find weapons and do the improvised,
Mm-hmm.
fuck, all I have is a dustpan and there's a guy charging at me. Like, well, I guess I'm fighting him with a dustpan. Like, they want to set up those situations. So, but like the boss fights where you have to fist fight somebody, hated that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other criticism is like a half criticism because I think some of it is on us. I think this game can be too long depending on how much you try to do. Like, I can see people being like absolutely floored by the first 5 to 10 hours of this game and being like, this is so fun. I'm doing everything because it's so fun. And then you find yourself continuing to try to do everything. And by hour 20, you're like, holy shit, when is this going to end? And that's kind of the point when I was like, you know what? I have side stuff. I'm ignoring it. I'm going to get the main story done so we can move to the next location and keep this thing rolling. Like, I think there's a little bit of onus on the player to decide how much you can handle. Because I think if you just mainline the story, it's like maybe 15 hours, something like it's not a super long game, which would be more in line with a first-person shooter campaign to be that long instead of 25, 30 hours.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like that's a good thing to pull out too, because like as people who like podcast about games, like there's one part of me that wants to go deep and see everything, and then there's the other part of me that's like, I need to keep going because I'm also playing other games.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm sure that like your super Indiana Jones fan could do everything here and love it, but if you're pretty casual, you could probably just mainline it and like you'd miss some good stuff with Gina, but you wouldn't miss too much, and I think would still really enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm. You would miss some fun side dungeon, stuff,
Mm-hmm.
tombs to raid and puzzles to solve and stuff like that. That's another thing about the gameplay too. Not to get myself on two different topics at once, but the puzzles are pretty fun. Like looking around for clues in the environment and stuff. Like I generally enjoyed doing that stuff, and you would miss some of those if you skip all the side content. I just think
Mm-hmm.
like it's a good way to go into this game with the approach of like, I'm going to do side content until I start to feel myself wondering when we're going to move on, and then just draw that line for yourself. Don't burn yourself out because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot that you can go find. There's a lot to do. The collectibles go all the way down to like, you have tons of, I forget, like pictures to take around the city. And if you want to go all the way down to that level of collectible, like you could spend dozens more hours in the game than we did. So I
Mm-hmm.
think like, I don't know. I think some responsibility is on the game to pace itself well. But I think that in this game in particular, some of that's on the player too, to decide when it's time to move on. And you can always go back, by the way, just to throw that out there. You can go back to earlier levels if you get to a certain point and you decide, you know what, I do want to go back and do more collectible stuff. You can. So, not to worry.
Mm-hmm.
Let's roll into our kind of wrap up in the non-spoiler section here, and then we'll get into spoilers soon. But first, Dan, we always talk in this section about, if we have any wrap up thoughts, let's get those, and then also, what type of person do you think should play this?
Yeah. I think final thoughts is I think this is a good game. Machine Games did a good job, and yeah, they're on my radar even more. I hope this becomes a series. I would love to get more of these.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like they're going to have to do it, especially that like your Xbox exclusives haven't tended to hit that well. So I feel like they should lean in on this if I were them.
Mm.
So I think overall, awesome stuff. And excited to be able to talk spoilers in a little bit. But then I think
Yeah.
who this game is for, I think if you're someone who likes Uncharted and Tomb Raider, like I think this is your wheelhouse. It's a different version of it, but I think it's for you still.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, if you are someone who like can really get absorbed in an environment, I think there, like we've talked about, there's so much to see here. If you're someone who really likes to get involved with that kind of stuff, I think it's good. And I think even it's easy enough that like if you're not even like the deepest gamer, but you really like Indiana Jones, you might be able to play. I mean, like I played on easy,
Mm-hmm.
and I only had a few parts that I had problems, and that was because I tried to be a shooter, and you can't
Yeah.
really do that. But like, I don't know. I think it's pretty approachable too. So I think it could be for a good chunk of people.
Yeah, I agree. There are difficulty selectors, so I think there's even like a just let me explore and take in the story type mode in here too. So it's just a really easy game to recommend. I don't
Mm-hmm.
for the Indiana Jones fans, absolutely like must play.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't play any of the Indiana Jones point and click like LucasArts games,
Yeah.
but I would be shocked if they capture the feel of Indiana Jones better than this does. And obviously it's hard to compare something from 30 years ago with this new game with new tech and everything, but like this is Indiana Jones. Those moments that you like, the characters that you like, the antagonists, the fighting Nazis and all that stuff that you like, it's here. It's really, really good. So,
Mm-hmm.
and again, just to reiterate, like the Indiana Jones vibe and like capturing those moments is what puts this over the top into like a very, very good experience and like a great capturing the essence of Indiana Jones. Roundabout way of saying that. But again, if this was not an Indiana Jones game, if this was just like a generic, guy white shoot good action hero, it would still be a very good game because the level design is great, the characters are great, performances are great, the set pieces are fun, all that stuff hits. Like there's just a couple things where it's like know yourself and your limits for side content and your tendency to burn out on a game with lots to do, because there's a lot to do. That's basically the only kind of like caveat I would give. Otherwise, this game rocks. And, even if you're not a huge Indiana Jones fan like me, I don't really care. Like I would not have played this just to play an Indiana Jones game. That's not what drew me here. And that's one of the best qualities of it is the Indiana Jones, but it's not the only reason to play this. So there we go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So hefty recommendations from the both of us for this. And before we get into spoilers, we'll do our housekeeping per usual. And Dan is the host of the Greatest Story Ever Played podcast. So I will kick it over to you, Dan. Tell people about the show and where they can find you.
Yeah. So our show, The Greatest Story Ever Played, is kind of like Dave's, where we do one game per episode, kind of deep dive into it. I would say ours is a little bit of the reverse of this, where we do a non-spoiler section up top that's not that long, probably like 10 minutes or something like. And then most of it is kind of deep dive spoilers, talking through the story, what we thought, all of that stuff. People write in and give their opinions, and we'll share those inside the store, inside our recap too. Yeah, we've been going for a while. I think we've got over 200 episodes in the feed. Wherever you get podcast. I'm on Blue Sky at Story Ever Pod. I like to engage on there, and yeah, hope you check us out.
Yeah, it's a good show. More focused on narrative, I think, than anything else on the show, which is why, like you said, the spoiler sections are a bigger portion of the episodes, but the talk about the narrative and stuff is really good. You have lots of guests on the show, lots of common guests between that show and Tales from the Backlog here. And so I do recommend it. I love listening to the show. And every now and then there's an oddball episode that doesn't seem to fit. That's great. Like I really loved your college football 25 episode. Just a really good talk about a nice surprise out there. A nice surprise. A lot of people maybe had low expectations for that game, and a lot of people ended up really liking it. And your podcast was great about that. Was there any other episode or episodes that you would direct new people to?
Yeah, no, thank you. Also, I that episode was a lot of fun to do with Katie from Left Behind Game Club, who I know has been on your show too. I would say, really, I would just go look at our episode list and see games that you've played. I really liked our discussion on The Last of Us 2. I thought that game was great, or Ghost of Tsushima. I would say how our games kind of fall is I'm a big fan of like the Life is Strange series and other, Telltale Walking Dead games, that kind of stuff. So we have a ton on that style of game. I would say also our like Sony first parties, those tend to be narrative heavy. So we have a bunch on those. And then also indie games, I like getting into those. So you're like walking sims like Edith Finch or, that sort of stuff. So if any of those are your kind of vibe, we've probably done episodes on those games or ones that are like it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So again, recommend go check it out. Maybe as I'm talking about myself for the next couple minutes, as the spoiler break music is playing, go click down in the show notes. There will be a link to the podcast so you can easily look. And like Dan said, find a game that you've played before, or if you don't care about spoilers, and give it a listen. It is quality stuff. So, all right. Well, if you have enjoyed the show to this point, and if you're still here, I hope it's because you're enjoying the discussion. Please consider leaving a rating and review if you're listening to the podcast version, or if you're watching on YouTube, please consider hitting like, leaving a comment, subscribing, and sharing the show with a friend. All of those things are great because it gets new eyes and ears on the show, helps people find it, and that's what we want to happen. Also, I have a Discord server, which is a very lively and friendly community of people who love talking about video games. There's an invite link, again, down in the show notes, so you can easily join us. We would be happy to have you. And last but not least, if you would like to support what I do monetarily, you can do that at patreon.com/realdavejackson, where you can vote on games I do on the show. I do bonus episodes sometimes. I have a bonus monthly retro gaming series where I play games that are at least 30 years old. So I'm really going back. Though it's not that. That's 1995. That's not that. I might have to up that to 35 years or maybe even 40 at this point. So yeah, anyway, lots of stuff on Patreon. If you like what I do, please consider supporting. And with all of that being said, we are going to take a break. I'm going to catch my breath. And when we come back, it will be full spoiler time for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. All right, before we get to full spoilers for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I'd like to say thank you to the wonderful patrons who help support the show. Big thank you to Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Ficori, Jill, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rob Smith, Rigamort, Silcanet, Ashton Ruby, Levi, John E., a new patron, Esteban Gallante, and many more. Thank you all for the support. If you're listening to this right when it comes out, there will be a new poll up on the Patreon for horror games for an episode to come out in October, so stay tuned for that. All paid patrons can vote. If you haven't joined up yet, you can do so. You can participate in that poll and get some other treats as well as my everlasting love and respect, as always. So, once again, that's patreon.com/realdavejackson. Let's get back now to full spoiler time for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. All right, we're back, and it's full spoiler time for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And per usual, this is not a linear walk through the story. We are going to start out by talking about our favorite sections, and we'll probably spend some time talking about the first level, but that doesn't mean that we're going to hold off things until the order that they come up in the game. So again, if you don't want to be spoiled, please go play the game and come back. We'll always be here. All right. So again, I do want to just kind of start by talking about our favorite levels and places to explore in the game. And I think a good place to start would be that Vatican level, because it is, like I said, reminiscent of a Dishonored level, and reminiscent of the city levels in Dishonored, where you have outdoor spaces, you have buildings, you go through them, the buildings connect to each other, you are constantly picking up keys that will open up doors to unlock shortcuts or to let you into new parts of these giant buildings. This was just a marvel to explore this. Really loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool on its surface. You're in the Vatican, that's all cool. But then as you dig deeper and you find these hidden places under the Vatican and secret tombs and all of that, I thought that was really cool, because you would be oh, I'm in, this modern church, but then I opened this wall that no one knew about and now I'm somewhere new. I don't know. It felt really cool. I really liked that.
Yeah. There is an air of mystery about those old European cities where they were built on top of what the city used to be. And there is stuff underneath, Paris catacombs and all that. And the Vatican level really captured that, where you could, most of the time you'll do this because the story will take you there, but you could find a secret door and that takes you down into a room where no one's been for 500 years or something like that. And you get into some of those in the Vatican level. There's one under the what's it called? The place with the nuns where you start the game.
Yeah, the monastery. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I also liked in this level your priest friend who.
Yeah, Antonio.
Antonio. There we go. He was clearly your friend. He hooked you up to be able to get you to do your archaeology exploring, and you gave him records because he really likes music, and I thought that was fun. Of he's this priest who's cares about that stuff, but also is still a guy, and is oh, I want to listen to jazz. What's this new music or whatever? I thought that was fun.
Yeah, I love that. Love having the characters feel like you said, this guy has a hobby outside of giving quests to Indiana Jones, Love that. I love also in the Vatican, this kind of I guess the kind of dynamic between the fascists and everyone else in the city is a little bit different in each of the zones you go into, where in the Vatican, the fascists are occupying. When you go to Giza, they're kind of enslaving the locals to dig up, these dig sites and stuff. When you go to Thailand, they're invading, they're not entrenched yet. And there's a rebel force trying to fight them off. By the way, Thailand is the place where I've been before. So and I have been to some of those more jungle areas and, river, going on boats to get from place to place and stuff in Thailand. Oh, wow. In Cambodia specifically, with more so the place where you go in this game remind me of places I was in Cambodia and in Laos. But yeah, very familiar in a way to go to that place. So that was cool. But the Vatican, I think what makes this interesting is there's so many different places that you could consider to be dungeons, I guess, in video gamey terms, but they're different from each other. There's the fascist camp right outside the monastery, and then there's a museum in there, and the fascists run that whole thing. So it's a restricted zone, and that's a little mini dungeon. And then you have the palace in there, which is also run by the fascists, but it's this beautiful indoor palace that you have to sneak around and stuff like that. You have obviously the catacombs under the city, that are more like the traditional video game dungeon type place. These are all like very different places. You have that dig site, which is really
Mm-hmm.
fun to like kick Nazis into the pits that they're digging in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a really fun place, and they all connect to each other. So it's like you'll go through one of these dungeons, and you'll come out the other side. Maybe you're doing a story mission or something like that, and you'll unlock the door that leads you outside, and you're like, oh, I know this place. And then I think what's cool about it is like you have reason to go back to these places and use those shortcuts that you open up, because I like comparatively you spend more time in the Vatican than in the other places. And so like the intricate design of it, I mean, I'm in heaven in levels like this in games, and everywhere you go, there's puzzles to solve and side quests to do and little machines to unlock and get little treats and stuff like that. It's just very good.
Yeah, I thought this was really cool. Both it felt small but was big at the same time, which is weird, but like it did because of the kind of compact nature of it. I
Mm-hmm.
think a good point you bring up earlier was that each area is interacting with the fascist in a different way. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was cool, seeing what that was like. And so for this one, it's I think the high priest is like I don't know, sick or something like that. So they're not really in charge. And the second in command basically invited the fascist in. And so you
Mm-hmm.
even have like the different priests and nuns who have different opinions on this. Like some of them are like, I don't know, this guy's in charge and he says we should do this, so it's fine. But other people like Antonio are like, they shouldn't be here. This is wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes for a really unique setting beyond like the walls and stuff, but the people in it and the vibe and all of that. It was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really tied in, and like there's you'll read like letters from Mussolini to like the
Hmm.
high ranking in command in there, and you'll just kind of get that feeling that like, yeah, this is an occupation, but like the people aren't being subjugated in the same way that the people in Egypt are when you go there. And then
Hmm.
like it's just like a, you know, a war zone, an occupation again, but a more violent one in Thailand when you get there. So
Hmm.
different vibes in all those places for sure.
Hmm.
So other than the Vatican, what level do you think stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I'll say this one because we hinted on it earlier. But one of our linear levels that we get is we get dropped into China,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and we basically time hop there, which is a cool story thing that we'll talk about later, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But we get time hopped there, and we're in China, and it's when the Japanese are like bombing this city, and so you
Hmm.
basically have you and you're just kind of running through this bombarded city, hopping from building to building as shit crashes around you. It was
Hmm.
really cool. I thought this was so awesome, just as a set piece, how it looked like it. I don't know. It felt super exciting and was a spot where like being linear was great because it was just a thing to go through. Like Uncharted situations where sometimes there's something wild going on and it's like you only do this one way, you experience it, but it's like intense the whole way. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was cool to see another side of like World War II. Usually World War II media focuses on like US versus Germany or
Hmm.
US versus Japan, but like Japan versus China isn't really focused on. And so I thought
Yeah.
that was cool to throw us in that area too.
100%. Yeah. I think first of all, that level in China is like 15 minutes long tops. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, I think of all of these places, aside from like set piece moments within other levels, this is like the spectacle level where you're like, the streets
Mm-hmm.
are bombed out, they're on fire, there's planes flying overhead, they're dropping bombs. Like, it's one of the classic, we'll just keep using Uncharted as an example, but like you're going through a house, the floor falls out from under you, you have all these like scrambles and stuff like that. And I mean, there's a little bit of ridiculousness when you're like, oh, we found a plane lying on a rooftop. Let's just fly that plane out of there, like without any room to, gain speed to take off or anything like that. Then you have like you have like a plane combat section leaving that city. It felt very welcome because that's right after the Himalayan ship section,
Mm-hmm.
which felt very welcome to me because Giza was the first place where I started to feel that like, I need to get this moving because I'm getting tired of this.
Mm-hmm.
Giza is just not as interesting a space. And even though like I like the tomb levels where you're like going through and solving the puzzles and like there's a bit of spooky atmosphere when you're inside of a pyramid or something like that. But like
Mm-hmm.
that, it's just not as interesting. So like I started to feel a little bit of that fatigue, and then it's like, boom, battleship on top of a mountain in the Himalayas. That was
Mm-hmm.
cool. And then right after that, you get dropped into this like even more, like you don't even like really fight anyone in China except for when you're in the plane. It's just moving from, bombed out house to bombed out house. So like those were like a palate cleanse before they drop you back in Thailand and they're like, okay, here's another big open area.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like they could have basically done these in any order that they wanted to, because you end up having these magical time hopping stones. Or thought it
Yeah.
was funny at the end of the China level, you get like a warplane and you fly the warplane from China to Thailand, or like to like it's really far. Like it's too far for a warplane to fly. But anyway, point being, those were great palate cleanses after two big open areas in a row, and they're really fun to go through like on their own. Like if it was just
Mm-hmm.
a game of those, it would still be a really fun game, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, and that they did different things. So, like the Himalayas one, great set piece, and it gives you a lot of story stuff, which is exciting. And
Yeah.
then when you jump to China, you don't get any story things. It's just something crazy that's happening.
Yeah.
And you're just like, cool, I'm in on it. And then, like you mentioned with the plane stuff, that was cool because that gave you like a new gameplay thing and it let you get to use some of like maybe more good shooting
Hmm.
mechanics that like MachineGames would normally do. You're like, oh cool, I'm a
Right.
gunner and I'm shooting down
Yeah.
planes and it's really satisfying.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that was cool. But I think you're right. We need to back up though and talk about the Himalayas one
Yeah.
because what a cool set piece that you find yourself up in this icy mountain with a battleship somehow here,
Yeah.
and you explore this battleship filled with frozen Germans.
Hmm. It's cool because so like to this point in the story, they find these magic stones and Voss is trying to collect the stones, but you don't know what they do yet. And
Hmm.
then you get to this place, you just have like this tip that Voss is searching in the Himalayas for the next stone. And so
Hmm.
you go there and you're like, okay, so it's going to be in a fucking cave or something like that. But you turn the corner, and the way they do this reveal is great, where you come out of like a little crevasse out of a cave, and suddenly you see this battleship precariously on top of these mountains, and it's real cool. And then you go in
Hmm.
there and you do the level, explore the battleship, you read about this was my favorite place to read like logs from the people there, because it's
Hmm.
all people writing diaries after the ship was in like South America or something like that and got
Hmm.
instantly teleported here somehow. And then it's like all these people, they're like, we're freezing to death. We don't have any food. We don't have the right clothing. What the fuck? And then, going through these things, all the frozen bodies were really eerie. You find that's part of why Gina was with you in the story, is she's looking for her sister who was working with Voss. And you
Hmm.
find her, she froze to death on the ship. And you find out that she's the reason why the ship is up there in the first place. So you're right. Like this is where like the story started to really pick up with like, you see the battleship, you're like, how the fuck? And then
Hmm.
you learn the reason why. And I thought the reason why that you learn is cool. Like it's magic, but like very enjoyable to figure out. Okay, so like that's what these stones can do. They can teleport
Hmm.
whatever is nearby, including an entire ass battleship. But there's more stones, so now we know why we need to stop Voss.
Right. And at this point too, Voss has what, like I forget how many stones there are, but something along the lines of like, you know, 18 of the 20 stones or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Like
he's close. Yeah.
he's like really close, and he doesn't even know what they do necessarily, but is just like, this is going to be our supreme Nazi weapon. And
Yeah.
I'm not like super versed in this, but my understanding is that the Nazis basically tried to do any mystic shit to figure out, could this be a weapon, you know?
Mm.
And so it seems like this goes along well with like history. And
Yeah, it
so,
would. Yeah.
you're kind of buying, I feel like, as the player, like all of this. And Indiana Jones understanding his stakes more is like, it's not, by this point, he's like, oh shit, like it was important to stop Voss before, but like now it's really important to stop Voss.
It's kind of like you said earlier. It's like they had this like professional rivalry more than anything until that point. And then they're like, oh, this is what these stones can do. And Voss even tells you in a cutscene, like, imagine being able to teleport tanks into the middle of a city. Like, every
Hmm.
attack is a surprise attack now. And like, that would obviously be horrible for anyone fighting against the Nazis. So now Gina and Indy like realize like, well, funny, it should be us, the archaeologists and the journalists, who are most equipped to find the
Hmm.
stones before Voss, but we have to do this for the sake of the world now, rather
Hmm.
than just like, I want to win, friendly or maybe not so friendly competition amongst archaeologists. So
Yeah.
that battleship level is just very cool to just go through as like a linear sequence of set pieces. And then like the end, when it starts to tip and slide down the mountain, and you have like that desperate thing, as like the things like sliding down the mountain, he's trying to read the I forget the language, but the Adamic is the language, like this
Hmm.
ultra dead language, the old, like the most dead language that like just so
Hmm.
happens Indiana Jones can read it. So he's trying to like read it. It's like a magic spell, trying to do it as the ship is sliding down the mountain. Very, very cool.
Yeah, super cool. I had a question. I don't know if this was
Hmm.
explained or if you thought this. Did you think along the way, like here we get one of the stones? Did you ever think like, why don't they just break it? Like, wouldn't that stop all of this?
I wonder. I wonder if Indiana Jones could break. Well, that's not true, because he breaks those artifacts to get the stones that are hidden in the artifacts. I was thinking, like, would the block there be that he doesn't want to break something as precious as this?
Mm, that makes sense though. Maybe that's the logic they used in that, because I was
Eh,
wondering like, okay,
yeah.
you found one of these stones, like why don't you just like grind it to dust and like put the dust in a bunch of different places? Then like, the Nephilim magic is broken.
Yeah. No, it's probably because, like, yeah, like I said, the stones are hidden inside of other precious artifacts.
Mhm.
So Indy breaks those with no second thought to get the stones out. So I don't think that's actually the thing. It's probably just one of those, like, just try not to think too hard about that. We need
Yeah.
the stones for the story we're telling. But that probably would be Voss needs all 20. So all you have to do is just smash one into pieces. There's sledgehammers everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's fine. Like, it's an Indiana Jones story. Again, like
Right.
it's fine that this solution didn't come up, but I did think that along the way of like, because there was a part or two where Indiana Jones has the stones on him and he's kind of like, all right, I'm going to do something risky. Hopefully I don't get captured. And you're like,
Hmm.
what? Like, go hide them somewhere. um,
Oh, yeah.
um,
And he does, it's like twice in the game where he gets a stone or a collection of stones, and then he gets himself captured in
mhm,
hilarious fashion, or gets himself stuck in the sand, and like Voss
mhm,
just comes and like takes the stone out of his hand that's sticking out of the sand.
mhm.
So yeah, that fits with Indiana Jones, though, like those kind of peaks and valleys and like comical ways that the story moves forward.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I felt like it worked. Like it didn't bother me that much, but I thought of it a little along the way and I was like,
Yeah.
wouldn't this be the way out of this? But Also, I guess we didn't. I don't know if we've talked fully about this. I like the sort of premise that it's what after Noah's Ark happened or whatever, and the Nephilim basically like God gives them each a stone, and they each go to a different culture of the 20 cultures, set up
Mm-hmm.
a base there, and then sort of set up a lineage of like, we're going to do all of this to help make sure Earth is right. And if Earth is ever not right, we'll all come together to end Earth, is sort of the like setup. And I think that's a good hook. Like, just like Raiders of the Lost Ark with the Ark of the Covenant, I think is what it is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's good. I like it. I think that works out pretty well.
Yeah, the way they tied the biblical thing into the story is great. This is what I was talking about, where it's like once you find out that this is connected to the story of the Great Flood and Noah's Ark, it's like
Mhm.
instant. Like we can, and not to say all, but like a lot of us can just instantly be like, oh, I know that that's a very common story. It's one of the most famous stories in
Mhm.
human culture, at least Christian culture, people who've been exposed to it, right? So
Mhm.
having that be like the basis instead of like, oh, there's this magical artifact that like some ancient civilization was using. It's, we just made it up. So just believe in it, but like Noah's Ark, the Great Flood, we don't need to be taught about that. And then having this be like, oh, Noah also used the stones to travel around and gather up the animals is what I'm to gather from this, which is
Mhm.
cool too. So yeah, I didn't catch on that, that the Nephilim are all going to come together and bring about another great flood to end the world if things go to shit. And the Nazis taking over the world counts, I suppose, as something that would inspire
Yeah.
that. Yeah, okay, that makes sense because when Voss gets all the stones and activates them, another great flood immediately starts.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was thinking that that must be like their failsafe. If like God says, if we ever got to do this again, you guys make it happen. Like, call me.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. This is cool. And I liked. I felt like the Adamic stuff for the Himalayas was believable in that her sister was a specialist in ancient languages, right?
hmm,
And that this Adamic was essentially like adjacent to some other uncommon language, right? It's like
yeah.
the hillbilly version of this other language. And Indiana Jones is able to be like, okay, I know some of these words. And then he accidentally teleports. He doesn't know it'll happen.
Right. He's just like, well, it's written on this thing. We're in a desperate situation. I guess I'll try and read it and see what happens, which I think is what happened with Gina's sister and why
Hmm.
they got teleported in the Himalayas in the first place is because she said the magic phrase that teleported them. And I guess like the way I understood it is if you only have one stone or if you're not super familiar with the process, then it's like unpredictable where you'll teleport. But if you have enough stones, or if I don't know, if you say the words while you picture something in your head or something, then you can
Hmm.
control where you go.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, because Gina's sister and then Indiana both had kind of accidental magic,
Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know. It was cool. I liked it. I feel like the kind of story they added around things worked. I thought it
Yeah.
was fun. Like we said, it's an Indiana Jones story, not too deep, but like it works and is nice.
Yeah. So if the story's not too deep, then you can make it entertaining. And Ruki
Hmm.
agrees with me if people can hear. You can make it entertaining by taking you to places that you know and going through this story that a lot of
Hmm.
us are familiar with. And so like I think I like giggled when Noah's Ark popped up as the last level of of the game. And like you go into this cave in like this ancient underground ziggurat or the word I've never
Hmm.
said out loud before. And the fucking ship is in there and it's this giant ship. Maybe an unreasonable ask, but I really wish you could have had a level in the ship in
Hmm.
Noah's Ark. What would it look like? That thing is huge. It's like the size of, fucking Manhattan or something. It's like giant.
Hmm.
So what would
Hmm.
it look like inside there? the level in like the big temple in Thailand was cool. I like that a lot. So, I'm always interested, but it may have been a thing where it's like, we don't have time, interest, or money to go inside the ship. There's just, you infiltrate it, you get on the deck, Voss slots the stones, starts the new flood, and then there we go.
Yeah, that would have been cool to go inside, because like this last level, like I knew I was at the end of the game, but stealthing through a Nazi camp at the end of the game, I was like, I don't know.
Been there,
I
done
didn't
that.
Yeah, been there, done that. Also, I'm not like allowed to just shoot them all, so like it felt semi annoying. But that would have been really cool to have gotten on the arc. But I did like our whole like cutscene setup here with like Locust teams up with you to do this because Gina gets taken, right? And so you're going to rescue her. Indiana Jones even has the like no, Locust calls all the Nephilim. That was cool. The Nephilim go and attack, and Locust is like, you go rescue Gina, don't look back, which I felt like was like a like the Lot's wife pillar of salt situation. Like they're gonna destroy the camp, and like it's gonna be like a angelic type devastation, and like don't look back because you'll go blind or die, like they set you up for some shit. But the Nazis are well armed, and so they kill all the Nephilim except Locust, and Gina is like, no, we shouldn't run away and cut our losses. Like, we got to find out what this is about. And you're like, bet, let's do it. And then you guys get captured, and you get, Voss sort of monologuing to you of, all right, I'm about to use Noah's Ark. I'm going to make this super weapon. And, you guys are in this tough situation. I thought it was cool. I thought where we ended up was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and like the last level. So like in that camp, Rookie, dude, in that camp, there's one part where Indy and Voss are kind of like, doing a verbal sparring thing. And there's one part in that scene right there where Voss is like, hey, just forget about like this world domination and all this. Let's archaeologist to archaeologist. I want to nerd out about this with you. And that was a very humanizing thing for Voss. It was like, oh, he's like at his core, yeah, he's a Nazi and all that. At his core, he's an archaeology nerd too. And I think like he's doing his duty, his job as assigned by Hitler, directly by Hitler to go do this. And so, yeah, piece of shit. But what he really wants in that moment is to talk archaeology with a colleague. And I thought that was really good to just have that moment. And it's not very long, but it's like just a couple minutes of Voss just spilling out his enthusiasm and nerding out over this discovery that they're making together slowly. Very, very cool. And then when you get on Noah's Ark and like the flood starts and the lightning is crashing and all that, then Voss goes into like full villain monologue, which is also great because the performance is awesome for Voss. So again, like it's just so good. This character. Let me try to think. I actually may be able to pick out. It's been months since I played a game with a story or with an antagonist as compelling as Voss. Every time Voss is talking, I'm listening. I'm not checking my phone when Voss is talking. And it may have been, I don't know. It may have been like similar to the villain in Metaphor Refantasio. I thought was very good, very charismatic. And I might have been the last one like months ago now. And I play like a game a week on the show here. Most of them are story focused, and most of them, the antagonists are just like, yeah, they're the antagonist.
Yeah, I thought this was great. I like the call out you made too of wanting to nerd out about archaeology, because it wouldn't happen, but you're like, he almost wants to turn Indiana Jones to be like, come on, let's just do this archaeology stuff together. It's fine if Hitler's our boss, like, because we get to do this archaeology stuff.
Or the opposite. Like there could be a point where like, he's like, you know what? Like Hitler's holding me back from what I really want to do is just do this archaeology shit. And like, the classic quote, right? You don't have to hand it to him for anything, for the Nazi guy. But just the fact that he is at his core another archaeology nerd, and like even if Indiana Jones is in a compromised situation, he finds a time where he's like, "Can we please just nerd out for 5 minutes here?" And it's very fun.
Yeah, he's a good villain. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like you mentioned, video game like villains in general, but probably video game villains can just be kind of like the big bad, and then you're like, oh, that was it. Like it's not
Yeah.
that exciting. But Voss was good, both
Mm-hmm.
the actor who portrayed him and kind of everything that came with it. It was good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, so I guess the Great Flood kind of begins to be summoned here,
Mm-hmm.
and fistfights are brawling out, all of that, and Locust essentially sacrifices himself by
Yeah.
like,
By like imbuing all the power that's like coming down from heaven into the wheel of the ark. He's holding on and like absorbing it. And I don't know, he does like a fucking angel death ray or
mm,
something that basically like Voss absorbs the power and just like burns up immediately.
hmm
Like the power of heaven or something like that comes down.
yeah, which I guess feels kind of reminiscent, right, of Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
they open the, what's it called, and
The Ark of
get
the Covenant
vaporized.
and
Yeah, there we
yeah,
go, Ark of
yeah,
the Covenant, and they get
great.
vaporized. Yeah, which is cool. I feel like this really adds to the spirit of Indiana Jones. Like everything felt this way, but then
Hmm.
this kind of overall story feel and resolving, like it's on point.
Yeah, dangerous magical artifacts are dangerous, and like they should
Mhm.
be respected. One of the, one of the most famous things from any Indiana Jones story is the Nazi guy with his face melting off and stuff like that. And a
Mhm.
similar thing happens to Voss at the end of the game here. And
Mhm.
yeah, so they'll never get to meet at a conference and talk archaeology. Voss would go down in the Nuremberg trials probably, but yeah,
Mhm.
great villain. The ending was action packed. The spectacle of it was great with like the flood and the lightning and all of that. Locust gets his heroic moment at the end.
Mhm.
And then there's a tease that Locust is still alive after the credits. And I think it ties in. I think by the time people are able to hear or watch this, the DLC will be out. And I think Locust is involved in that somehow. It's called something of the Giants. So
Okay.
yeah, so the Nephilim are involved. And I think there's like a post-credit scene that hints that Locust is still alive.
I wonder where he is.
Yeah, I
Like
don't know.
if when he absorbed the power, he got transferred to a different part of Earth or something.
So I think that was what it was because at the end, Indy and Gina had to jump off the ship, right?
Mhm.
And then I think he teleported the ship somewhere else. So
Okay.
he could have been anywhere. And then by teleporting it, you know what? Let's not ask questions about what happened to the Great Flood by teleporting it, unless he teleported out into the middle of the ocean and all that water just went out in the ocean and everything was fine.
Yeah, that must there must be like a thing like that that will make it fit. I wonder if the DLC will get added onto Game Pass or not, because I played this on Game Pass, so I'm
Yeah, me
like,
too.
if it gets added, then I guess I would probably play it, but I don't know if I would buy it just because I don't own the game.
Yeah. If it's on Game Pass and if word is that the DLC is like, we build another couple of cool levels, go have
Hmm.
fun, then I'm all about it. If it's like, super story focused, here's, I don't know. I'm confident that whatever levels they make are going to be fun. Like I'm not
Hmm.
sure that I'm super interested in continuing the story. It felt very complete to me, but
Yeah.
from a gameplay perspective, I would take another open zone with more side quests and more puzzles and stuff like that. It's been a long enough time and they're obviously very good at making this game, so more of it is sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised, like you said, since the game's over, that they would make a DLC. Like, I don't know if it needs one, but
Yeah.
like you said, if it's been far enough, it might be fun to dive back in because, like,
Yeah.
I do like DLC when I enjoyed a game. It's been a while since I played. I get to enjoy it for a couple hours and, get me hype again for whenever, game 2 comes or whatever.
Yeah.
I do like it for that purpose. So, yeah, I don't know. I hope that they I mean, I feel like they've got to do a game 2, but I hope they announce it. I would also be curious if we'd get Gina sticking around or not, or if she's like a one game kind of character.
Yeah, because like the end, it's kind of interesting how they play it. Like she's the like semi love interest, but like
Mm-hmm.
they flirt throughout the game, and then they have an almost kiss that gets interrupted in
Mm-hmm.
Thailand, and then they just kind of go about business for the rest of the game, and then they have a goodbye kiss. Indy says like, you should come with me, and she's like, no, I'm a journalist. I got work to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they could reunite for the DLC. I don't see a story reason why they couldn't. We'll just say that. But if it's just Indy and Locust buddy cop, I'm up for that too.
I would be into that too. Yeah, no, I agree. I wonder if it'll be like something I was surprised by when I played Uncharted the first time was I figured Elena would be like a one-time character, and that Nathan Drake would basically have like a different woman who he's on adventures with each game.
Right.
But instead, it's like, oh, you're like an integral part of this.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. And I mean, I know that the video games would have to deal with the movies, history of this. So I assume Gina is not in anything else. So they would have to, handle that all right. But I don't know. I would like to see her again. I thought she was a good duo with Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a very fun character. And, I really liked just like the banter between them as they went through all the places and how she makes fun of him and like her little nickname for him, Strombo, I think was her name for him.
Yeah.
Just very fun. Like, she doesn't take, it's not like she doesn't take shit, but she's like not bothered by him being a cocky, sarcastic guy.
Mm-hmm.
And she can hang with that kind of person. So they make a really good duo for sure. So if she's there, that's cool. Yeah, I'm talking myself into playing this DLC when it comes out, especially if it's on Game Pass. And then, I don't see any reason why they can't revisit this in the future. I think they're making another Wolfenstein, but these games take so long that it's hard to predict. Like, in 2030, if there's another Indiana Jones game, I'll play it. But who knows on the kind of timeline that these AAA studios work on now.
That's a good point, is that they might not even know if they'd want to greenlight a sequel until months after this released. Maybe once they saw everyone liking it, they were like, okay, maybe we got to do it. But like, they might have just thought it's a one-off story when they started. But that's a good point.
Which is fine. Like, I would take another one, but if this is a one-off thing and we're just gonna look back on it and be like, what game was cool? That Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, that was a really good game. There's nothing wrong with that either. And like I think you said at the beginning, MachineGames, whatever they choose to do next, new Wolfenstein, but any other projects, like I'm in. They've got the juice as a studio.
Totally agree.
Yep. Well, Dan, thank you for coming on and talking about this game with me. This has been a lot of fun. We knew that this was going to be a fun game to basically just like talk sugar about for 2 hours. And that's basically what we've done here. It's a very good game. I'm happy with the discussion. So thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
And for everyone who is still here with us, first of all, thank you for making it all the way through the episode. You're my hero. And a quick reminder, please check down in the show notes for the greatest story ever played, for narrative deep dive podcasts about one game per week, very similar to this show. Find a game where you want to hear an analysis of the story and really good, intelligent conversations. You'll find something to like there for sure. And tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Hello, my name is Aaron. I'm one half of Superpod Saga, a topical variety video game podcast fueled entirely by nostalgia and unleaded gasoline. Superpod Saga, we discuss a different video game topic each and every week. We have new episodes every single Monday covering a different video game topic. More than anything, we want to entertain our listeners and make you feel like you're one of the boys, like you're hanging out at a campfire with some of your best zany, caffeine-powered buddies and just talking about your favorite games and all that stuff. Stop on down to Superpod Saga. It's on every podcatcher there is. If it's not, let me know and we'll get on it. But again, Superpod Saga, stop on by.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.